hopefully we can get through before it starts pouring. My name is Sarah Moody. I'm here with Blue Skies Campaign. So we are here today celebrating Earth Week. And we are also recognizing that we can't have one day a year that we take care of the Earth, or 1 week. That this has to be an everyday event. Margaret Flowers and Jill Stein had an excellent interview on Bill Moyers, and they said all you need is 3.5% of the population to become actively engaged to enact change. 3.5%. That's it. That means you matter. Your voice matters, and what you do today and tomorrow matters. So one way you can become more engaged is to join one of the awesome groups that help sponsor this event. We have about 10 groups here in Missoula and 70 businesses and organizations across the entire state. So we have rallies in 13 different counties in Montana today. Pretty awesome. Go Montana. Big thanks to our volunteers. We had lots of people calling, making all sorts of phone banks, making posters, helping set up the rally today. Big thanks to them, and thanks to the Little Smokies, who hopefully, if it doesn't downpour, will be playing after. So this rally is being held in conjunction with 12 other events in the state today. We are Montanans from all walks of life. We are students, we are grandparents, we are healthcare providers, we are civil servants, we are scientists, veterans, business owners, and soccer moms. We are Montana. We are here today to send a message to our state and federal decision makers that they must do everything within their power to reduce greenhouse gases and to reduce fossil fuel development. We must be led to a new clean energy economy through energy conservation, efficiency, and renewables. We want clean energy, and we want it now. So what do we want?
Clean energy.
And when do we want it?
Now.
That was awesome. I've never done that. All right, there are a lot of ways that you can make a difference today. After our speakers, please visit our tables around. We got sponsors that have, there's yard signs, there's petitions to sign, including an open letter from Montanans to our elected officials calling for action on climate change and all sorts of other opportunities to take action. We have a great group of speakers lined up today. Unfortunately, Mayor John Engen wasn't able to make it as originally planned, but that's okay because we got some equally amazing speakers. So first up, we have Dr. Steve Running. He's a Nobel laureate and a University of Montana Regents professor. Let's give it up for Steve.
Well, good afternoon. This seems pretty warm to me out here, doesn't it? No, okay. I think what I want to do is just reiterate a little bit of how we as scientists have come to the conclusions that we have that are, I think, important to what this event is about. And probably most of you know that the latest Intergovernmental Panel Climate Change report has come out over the last 6 months. 3 separate reports. This is the group that I worked with. And the science is absolutely airtight, and we all know that. And what I find with the people that talk to me is they say, well, okay, the science is airtight, but what should we go do? The job is so immense, we just don't know where to start. And what I say in reply is I think all of us individually have already started in some of our own personal lifestyle choices. But at a societal level, what should be the highest priority? And I study the global carbon cycle. That's my part of this Earth system science. And for us, it's absolutely clear. The single biggest emitter on Earth is burning coal for electric power. And so let's start there. You know, we don't know how to fly airplanes without liquid fuels yet. There's some of our fossil fuel uses we don't have good substitutes. But for electric power, we have a lot of substitutes. And so this is the easiest. This is really the most, the biggest bang for the buck we can get is to quit burning coal for electric power and to be transitioning to renewable sources. Now, another question I get asked regularly is, well, gee, it's China that's the big emitter. And I reply with a couple of things. First, don't forget the history. We started this. And when you add up the previous decades, we still have plenty of responsibility for this issue. But the other thing I say, well, a couple other things. First, do you know that the U.S. carbon emissions have now gone down for 5 years in a row? So our country is turning the corner. Most people don't realize this, but 5 years in a row now, we've started to level off and turn down. That's the first good news. The second news that I hope becomes good is that China has the foresight to have 5-year national plans. Can you imagine that? A country that plans ahead for 5 years? It's unheard of. And in their last 5-year national plan that they've just announced in the last 6 months, they explicitly say that they intend to quit importing coal. And so China gets it already, that coal is not is really a fuel of the past, it's a fuel of the 1800s, and that in 2014 the world doesn't need it anymore and just can't afford the pollution load and the health load that it generates. And so I think what we're up to today is absolutely the highest priority we could do. Since Montana has so much coal, this makes a particular responsibility for us as Montanans to try to make sure Montana coal stays in the ground forever.
Leave it in the ground.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Steve. All right, next we have David Wanzenreed. He's our state senator from Missoula. He's one of the strongest supporters of environmental causes in the legislature, and he was the first of our Missoula legislators to call for public hearings on coal export projects in Missoula. Let's give it up for David.
That silence is sort of awkward and uncomfortable, isn't it? When it comes to climate change, we've done a really, really good job of being quiet, haven't we? Absolutely. That needs to change, and it needs to change starting today. You know, I grew up in a dysfunctional family, lots of family secrets and lots of silence. And our family suffered because of that. Certain family members didn't fare so well. We have a family member that's suffering right now and not doing so well, Mother Earth. We all profess to love her, we want to nurture her, but when it comes to something that's as damaging as carbon emissions, are we doing enough? No, we're not. And can we do better than what we're doing? The answer is certainly yes. And let's start doing it right now. That silence, in too many cases, has resulted in inattention, indifference, and inaction. We can do better than that. You know, when these trains roll by here, everybody says, well, that coal car there has a certain number of dollars of tax revenue in it. That's a good thing. But is that enough? No. They say that coal development's about jobs, and jobs, yes, but is that all it should be about? Can we do better than that? Should we be asking about the health impacts of these coal cars running through our community? Shouldn't we have a voice in that permitting process to identify those impacts? Absolutely. And how about that mercury that's elevated in our lakes in Glacier Park? Where do you think that's coming from? Coal! Not in the United States probably, but from the plumes from China. Can we do better than that? Yeah? You know, if we'd done a better job when we were developing the richest hill on earth many, many years ago, we wouldn't have spent all the money we had to spend cleaning up the toxic time bomb behind Bonder Dam. You know what? We may not be able to fix the damage done to our climate at any cost. The inattention is robbing not us, but all of the future generations the ability to have jobs and tax revenue. We need to do better than that, and we can, and we must. Not going to happen. That eerie silence that's out there needs to change. That doesn't mean in your face. It means listening to one another and finding that elusive common ground. In Helena, we have done precious little in the legislature about climate change, global warming, whatever you want to call it. 2005 was a milestone. We passed the Renewable Energy Portfolio Standard. And guess what? Instead of strengthening it, some people want to get rid of it completely or weaken it. I say we need to strengthen it. We need to do more with renewables. And with your help, enlisting those people that have these horrible proposals, maybe we can just neutralize them at best. And hopefully we can turn them around and then become advocates. We're all in this together. They all need to recognize we have a common future if we choose it. It could be one that we don't depend upon fossil fuels if we choose to. We could be locked in the past if we choose to do that. We can do better, and I want to encourage every single person here to do something starting today and take the time to do it throughout the next year. We can't just say we want to be good stewards and take care of Mother Earth. We need to get rid of the silence to truly be a good family member. Don't you agree? Yeah. Let's start doing that today. Thank you.
Great wisdom there. All right, up next we got Deb Franzen. She's with Senator Tester, and she's going to read a statement from the senator. Thank you. You guys look great. And Senator Tester, sorry he can't be here, but he sent this message along with me. Thank you for inviting me to share a few words, and thank you for holding these important events across Montana. Some folks like to pretend climate change isn't happening, but we've seen its effects in Montana for decades, and I've seen them on our family farm. When my parents ran our farm, bitter cold winters would keep sawflies from wreaking havoc on our crops. But those winters are a thing of the past, and now pests are having a heyday attacking our farmlands and our forests. The only way to halt the effects of climate change on our state and our planet is to invest in clean energy resources, the ones we have right here in Montana. That's why I've been a strong supporter of Montana's wind industry since my days in the state legislature. It's why I'm working to provide tax credits for wind and solar startups and businesses so they can compete on a level playing field. And it's why I introduced a bill to encourage renewable energy development on public lands. I'm going to need your help getting these initiatives across the finish line, because supporting Montana's renewable energy sector is a win for Montana jobs and for the planet that our children will inherit. I'm counting on you to work with me because that's the only way we'll succeed. Thanks again for your passion. Stay in touch. Senator John Tester.
Why does he support Keystone XL? What about Keystone XL?
All right, are we staying warm out there?
Keystone too.
All right, our next speaker is Beth Shank. She's a registered nurse in Missoula. There's Beth.
Thank you so much, and nice to see you all today. Thanks for coming out. I am assuming, so I'm going to check something. I'm assuming that by now, everyone here at least is quite aware of the health impacts of climate change. So let me ask a few questions. How many are aware of increased respiratory diseases? How about heart disease and complications of cardiac disease? Okay. How about increased allergies? Yes. Increased asthma? Yes. Increased infectious diseases as new vectors move north or into warmer climates? All right, that one was getting thin, but all right, this is an educated group. This is, I think, about even as recently as 3 or 4 years ago, maybe 5, we were not commonly linking health to climate at all. And yet, The Lancet, which is the journal, medical journal out of England, says that it's the largest public health issue of our time. Significant issue for all of us. So, I'm going to bring it home a little bit by showing you my power bill. You all get these, right? Hopefully you track your energy use. How many of you track your energy use? Compare month to month, see how it's going, see how you're improving. Excellent. I actually look forward to this because it tells me that I'm doing well. However, it also creates an ethical dilemma, right? Because I know that I'm doing everything I can to reduce my electricity use, which is what we're talking about today, and yet I'm causing problems with my electricity use. I don't want to. So I found a really interesting tool called the Energy Impact Calculator, which gives us an idea of the health impacts of our energy use. So it's designed actually for hospitals to determine the health impacts of hospital energy use, but it can be used for communities, at least I think so. So what I did is I looked up on the Census Bureau to see how many households there are in Missoula County. There's about 50,000. I couldn't tell what the average energy use, electricity per household is, so I took my own energy use. And I will warn you that my energy use is low. My energy costs, my electricity cost per month is $8 to $10. What it was this past month, $9.64. And so I took that as an average in these 50,000 households, so you know that it's going to be a low guess in terms of our composite use together and our composite health impacts. But the health impact calculator gives us two figures. One is indirect costs of burning the energy, and the other is direct health costs. So that's more or less the bills from the medical issues. It also takes into account what part of the country you live in. So ours is based on our energy mix, which is about 60% coal and 40% hydro. So what this told us, this very conservative estimate, of our indirect costs, do we have any guesses? Indirect costs from the 50,000 households in Missoula County? Okay, I'll tell you. $2.4 million a year. Health costs. And then how much in direct medical costs does just our energy use that none of us mean to hurt anyone with, and all of us need energy? What do you think that is? It's a lower number, the direct medical costs in 1 year. It's about $378,000, says this tool. So that's things that we are doing that are harming health when we don't intend to. And I know that all of us here are calling out for clean energy, so we don't have that dilemma. We want to do what we can, we want to reduce our use, and we don't want to be causing these problems. Unfortunately, because we're caught, we are causing these problems. But I'm not here to scold at all. I'm here to be very happy about the opportunities we have. And what I would say our opportunities are right now are, first of all, really to take conservation of energy seriously as a public health act. By reducing our use, we protect people and the world. Thank you. And the second thing is to do more of what you're doing and what our two prior speakers spoke out for us to do, which is to keep the conversation going, keep active, write your senators at least once a month. That is one of my goals, to write all of my elected officials at least monthly. There's always something to say. And to be involved with others and join with groups who are working on these issues together. So congratulations to all of you for doing that, and thank you for caring about our future and our planet.
Thank you, Beth. Lastly, we have Dr. George Price. He's a UM professor of Native American Studies and African American Studies, and an organizer with Indian Peoples Action.
I have my grandson Ty here to give me my coffee when I get all choked up. First, I'd like to comment on the decreased U.S. emissions. I'd heard that statistic too, and I wonder if it takes into account all of the activity up in Canada, in Alberta, the tar sands emissions in the productions up there, all of the U.S. industry around the world, or is it just emissions right here in our own backyard? The world is the universal backyard. I meant to begin saying, Wanayuk, be well and be in balance, live in balance. That's in my ancestral language, Wampanoag of Massachusetts. I'm a historian and a student of history and culture, indigenous peoples, and this world that I found myself born into and that I have long sought to escape from, this thing called Western civilization or industrial technological society. And so my perspective, which is an indigenous perspective, as we are today, as we've come to be under the circumstances, one of many indigenous perspectives too. I will also say there is no such thing as one Indian way of being or seeing the world. But I often wonder what things would have been like if the people who crossed the ocean, those English who came to Patuxet and turned it into a town called Plymouth, and other people had come here to learn rather than to take over and exert what they felt was their right to control the world and the natural world too. So I'm going to talk about a way of seeing the world that I find problematic, and as a climate solution, going beyond what I would call the Band-Aid approach, attacking every little symptom out there. We're stopping the megalodes briefly. We're going here, attacking the fracking and the Keystone and one thing after another. The corporations that say they're people that control the government, all of the inequality on the rise. You could go crazy running around trying to put out every one of these little fires. What I'm here to talk about is attacking the disease at its heart. If your doctor told you you need a heart transplant, you're in dire need of that or you're gonna die, would you say, "Oh no, doc, I'll just keep taking some aspirins and throw Band-Aids all over my arms and legs. That'll take care of it"? I'm going to come back to that question in a moment. And I also wanted to say, you read the science on your own. There's no reason to not be informed as to why we may just have 15 to 20 years to do what we can, and not 40, 50, 100, as some people say. So I have a 10-point outline. I just have to jump to that because I have a very difficult time speaking for 5 minutes. Of the symptoms, of the root of the disease, the deep disorder, and I'll just read these point by point as things to think about in preventing more and more symptoms from reoccurring. What if we tackled carbon and they come up with some other industrial technological way of destroying us all because they think they have the right to control the Mother Earth? And so point one of these deeper disorders: humans are separate from nature, superior to the natural world, and have the right to do whatever they want to the natural world. Point number two, nature, or the biosphere, is not an interconnected system that sustains all life, including ours. It's just the scenery. Point number three, the purpose of life is to collect and consume as many resources and manufactured products as possible. Point number four, more is always better than less. Number five, bigger is better than smaller. Number six, faster is better than slow because time is money. Number 7, economies and societies must grow, even if we live on a finite planet with finite resources. Number 8, you can't have an economy without currency. Therefore, other earth-centered ways of economics and ordering society are not worth thinking about. Number 9, a big one that our opponents often use. Jobs are always a good thing, no matter what they produce, however toxic. And number 10, and I don't know why I just did 10, I could go on and on. I think it was the 5 minutes thing, okay. Number 10, it is only the money and the perpetuation of our way of life that matter. Even if science has revealed to us that this way of life is the way of death for all beings in our interconnected, interdependent biosphere. So back to the earlier question, what if your doctor said you needed a heart transplant? What if it was not just your doctor, but you somehow had a good enough health care policy to consult with 98% of the world's heart specialists in the world, and they all told you the same thing? Well, 98% of the world's scientists in climate-related fields are telling us that human industrial activities since the mid-19th century have been raising the planet's temperature and putting CO2 in the atmosphere at increasing levels to the point where we now face the inability of life on Earth to continue unless we stop doing the same things within the next 15 to 20 years at the maximum. Solutions: don't wait for the status quo institutions and so-called leaders or the various industries to take the necessary actions, because their positions of prosperity and economic advantage have them trapped in believing that the status quo is basically good, that those conceptual paradigms are basically good, and that they start from the premise that we have to continue to consume in the ways that we are. The people must be, okay, I lost something there. If they won't produce the green technologies that we need, then the people need to produce them themselves by whatever means that they can, that we can, and we can share those products, whether it is food, land, transportation, housing, clothing, whatever, accepting that, rather than accepting that everything must be owned by individuals. We also need to re-examine our definition of the ideas of need. Transition Missoula and their time bank labor exchange programs is an example of solution, something you can do. Home resources here in Missoula also, where all kinds of building products can be recycled and bought used. The community gardens, secondhand clothing stores, free bicycles, many other things are already in process. There are ideas galore out there. There's no reason to be immobilized waiting for leaders. The people can build your own electric cars, other vehicles. You don't have to wait for Detroit, and so on. And ultimately, and the last thing, I'm sorry for going over time. If we do all those things, put in an alternative economy, an alternative way of life into place, we can then boycott the death machine, the other destructive way of being, you know. It has to start somewhere, and we can shut the machine down if we put the alternatives into place. Thank you for your patience with me and my lack of ability to keep time.
you, George, so much for that wisdom. Let's give another big round of applause for all our speakers today. Let's try another call and response here. What do we want? Clean energy. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Clean energy. When do we want it? Now. Awesome. All right, so now's the time where you take out your iPhones, which this is not one of them, but apparently people tweet. So if you use Twitter, there's one important way that you can take action right now. I like that action. We can send a quick message on Twitter to Governor Steve Bullock asking him to support climate solutions, address it to @GovernorBullock, and make sure to include the hashtag Montana or MT Climate Solutions. Apparently we have people all over the state sending messages today to Governor Bullock. So do that if you have a smartphone. All right, so that wraps up our speaker portion of the event. I am pretty excited about our next part. We have the Little Smokies are going to put on a little show for us. Stick around, mingle, go visit the information tables. There's some awesome yard signs. Blue Skies campaign is given out. Also, you can check out Little Smokies, the little trio. 3 of them are playing tonight at the Top Hat from 6 to 8 if you want to check that out. And then they'll be playing First Friday in the Old Post, in the Old Post parking lot. So check them out. Thank you everyone for coming. You matter. Let's give it up for Little Smoky, excuse me.
Is what you need. I'm going to Graceland, Memphis, Tennessee. I'm going to Graceland. I'm going to Graceland, Memphis, Tennessee. I'm going to Graceland.